Okay, I'm going to explain to you the difference between the Council of the European Union and the European Council. It is two completely different institutions, but for some reason, the one who created them decided to make it as confusing as possible. Not only do they have similar names, they also have the exact same logo, and they are both located in the same building. But these are two completely different institutions within the European Union. Start off, before I even begin to explain what these two different institutions do, I have to address the names. So, the Council of the European Union and the European Council. Very confusing. They both have Council and Europe in their names. And to make it even worse, they both have a bunch of nicknames. So when the news write about these institutions, they often do not even use the official names, which makes it even more confusing. For example, you could refer to either institution as the Council, just the Council. And that could mean the Council of the European Union, or it could mean the European Council. So, which is it? Most often, if you just say the Council, that means the Council of the European Union. But it could also be referred to as the Council of the EU instead of saying the Council of the European Union. You could also say Council of Ministers, while the European Council is often just called its official name, European Council. But sometimes you could also say EU Summit. So when they in the news talk about the latest EU summit, they are talking about the European Council. Okay, so what do these two different institutions actually do? So if we begin by looking at the Council of the European Union, they are made up of ministers from every EU member state. And these ministers vote on legislation together with the European Parliament, because in the EU there's this thing called co-decision where both the Parliament and the Council of the European Union have to approve a law. So ministers from every EU member state, which ministers depend on which topic is being discussed. So if they're about to vote on a law about the environment, then every environmental minister from every EU member state comes to the Council of Ministers, the Council of the European Union, and they vote whether or not to pass that law. And so they gather, here's the meeting room in the Europa building in Brussels, where they meet and vote on legislation. So the Council of the European Union is a part of the EU's legislative apparatus. While the European Council, on the other hand, is made up of heads of state or heads of government from every EU member state, plus the president of the European Commission and the president of the European Council. And here, the president of the European Council, he's the one who leads the meetings and sets the agenda. So, for example, right now, if there was a European Council or European Summit, as they are also called, for example, President Macron would represent France, and every other head of state or head of government would be there to discuss and define the EU's general political direction and priorities. So they don't vote on any legislation. It's more about the general direction of the EU. What are the next big moves? And they don't talk about any specific legislation. It's more about the most important decisions. And so here's a picture of one of these summits, where you can see all of the EU leaders gathered together to discuss. So that's really the difference between the two institutions. So to just summarize really quickly, the Council of the European Union, often also referred to as the Council of the EU or the Council of Ministers, because it's the council where the ministers gather, and they gather and vote on legislation. While the European Council, also often referred to as EU summits, that's a council where the leaders of every EU country meet to discuss, the top priorities of the EU, or the next big decisions. So that's really the difference. And I don't know why they made it so confusing. I mean, so similar sounding names, the same logo. It's I don't know how many people have been confused by this, but it must be many.